Hello friends, welcome to my channel ELS English Literature Studies with Core Harpreet. Today I will discuss what is conceit and I will also discuss some illustrations from Dunn's use of conceits, right? So let's get started, and if you like my content, please hit the like button, share and subscribe my channel. So let's get started with conceit. A conceit is a fanciful metaphor, especially a highly elaborate, or we can say an extended metaphor in which apparently means clearly dissimilar things are shown to have a relationship, right? This is the conceit. It is an extended metaphor in which dissimilar things are shown to have a relationship, right? It is conceit is essentially a simile. As a simile in the conceit, there is a comparison between two dissimilar objects. A comparison becomes a conceit when we are made to concede likeness while being strongly conscious of unlike also, right? Unlikeness. Next point is about the conceits that the Elizabethan poets were fond of, Petrarchan conceits, right, which are conventional comparisons, and these were imitated from the love songs of Petrarch, in which the beloved was compared to a flower, a garden, or like that things, right? It was a popular literary device in the Renaissance era, and in the beginning of the Renaissance, it referred to any fanciful expression of it. And because of its overuse and lack of innovation, over time, when the time passed, or over time, it gained a slightly negative connotation, right? And what was the reason? Because it was because of lack of innovation or because of overuse of conceits, right? And the definition, we can say the definition of conceit has changed over time, right? Firstly, it has its own definition in Renaissance era, and after that it has its own definition in 17th century. We will discuss it right now. Next is what is the function of conceit, right? When we talk about its function, conceits make comparisons between two dissimilar things. They allow readers to look at things in a new way. This is the function, that they allow readers to look in a new way. Similes and metaphors also explain things vibrantly, but when we talk about conceits, they surprise and shock readers by making far-fetched comparisons, right? This is, we can say, its function, or we can also say that it is its plus point or pros. It is used as a tool in literature to develop interest in readers, right? And writers have the reason that writers had used this literary term to explain an abstract concept in vivid and unique terms, and they also use this idea to help the readers to make an insightful connection between two different entities, between two different dissimilar things, right? To make an insightful connection between two different entities that might not have seemed related, right? And they also help reader to relate, but they wanted to readers to relate in a new way, and they help reader to make far-fetched comparison, right? And it also shows their smartness by comparing two very unlike things, right? And next is about the categories. When we talk about categories, there are two categories, Petrarchan and metaphysical conceits. Petrarchan conceits are a fixture of the Petrarchan sonnet, while metaphysical conceits can be found in a school of poetry known as metaphysical poetry, right? And in the 17th century, this device was used by the metaphysical poets. Those poets fashioned conceits that were witty, complex, intellectual, right? I've already told that it has changed according to time. In 17th century, these conceits are witty, complex, intellectual, and some of the poets, including John Donne, used this term, right? And in fact, we can say that these are the metaphysical poets who greatly popularized this use of this device, right? And it usually sets up an analogy between one entity's spiritual qualities and an object in the physical world, and it we can say it sometimes controls the whole structure of the poem also. And its example we will discuss after that. And let me discuss here one thing more, that Samuel Johnson, Dr. Johnson, disapproved of such strained metaphors. Why he disapproved? Because according to him, that in the conceit, the most heterogeneous ideas are yoked by violence together, right? These are very important words, that the most heterogeneous ideas are yoked by violence together. So he does not approve such constrained conceits, right? Now let us try to understand this concept with certain examples from metaphysical poets of the 17th century, and here we will talk about John Donne's poetry, who stands out as the best exponent of the use of metaphysical conceits, right? Firstly, I would like to talk about his poem The Sun Rising. These are some lines from his poem The Sun Rising, and these lines very clearly shows that he has used extended conceits in The Sun Rising when he says the lover's little room is a world in itself for the poet. His beloved, we can say his beloved is equal to all states and the kingdom of the world, and in possessing her he considered himself as rich as all the kings and princes, right? They are all in all to each other. She is all states and all princes are nothing else's, right? He says that he considered himself as rich as all the kings and princes. Then he writes, shine here to us, and thou is used for the sun, thou art everywhere. This bed thy center is, these walls thy sphere. The riches and glory of the outside world are nothing as contrasted with the glory and wealth of love. Love is all sufficient, and none, not even kings and princes, are so happy and so rich as true lovers are in possession of each other, right? Therefore, the sun should shine on them alone. It would be giving light and heat to all the world, right? Second illustration is from A Valediction Forbidding Morning, when he says that in this poem, actually, Valediction Forbidding Morning, actually, how he used conceit, brief conceit, we can say, is like a spark made by striking two stones together, right? And Donne's poetry has enough of such spark, but more characteristic of him is the extended conceit, and in an extended conceit, the comparison is not confined to any single point, right? And in this poem, A Valediction Forbidding Morning, two lovers are compared to the two legs of a pair of compasses, right? When he writes, if they be two, they are two, so as if lines are written here, we can say two lovers are likened to the legs of a pair of compass, and the head of the pair of compasses is one even when the legs are apart. One leg remains fixed and the other moves around it, right? And the lover, the fixed foot makes no show, right? One leg remains fixed, and the lover cannot forget the beloved even when separated from her. And the two lovers meet together in the end, just as the two legs of the pair of compasses are together again, right? And the spirituality of spiritual love is further established, we can say, by bringing in the famous conceit of the pair of the compasses, and the lovers are united together, right? So next we have example of the flea. When we talk about this poem, we find another striking example of conceit here, right? In these lines, the poet tells his darling that she has no reason to deny him sexually, as the flea has already sucked blood from both of them, and their blood has mingled in its gut. So the flea has become their marriage bed, right? This flea is you and I, means the flea has already sucked blood from both of them, and it has become a marriage bed, though they are not married yet. So its body is a temple in which they have been married. So these are some examples I have taken from Donne's poetry to explain what is conceit. I hope you will you are able to understand. And Donne is best known by his use of conceits, that is far-fetched ideas, images, similes, metaphors, right? Conceits come naturally to Donne's mind, and he did not have to strain himself to find conceits, though we have to strain ourselves. As a reader, we have to strain ourselves to understand it. But when we talk about Donne, it comes out naturally, right? It is, and we can say it is an integral part of his poetic conceit. He introduces a conceit and then elaborate it, and then he modifies it, then twist it, and so on. So friends, this is all about conceit. I hope you like the content, and if you like it, please hit the like button, share and subscribe my channel, and if you are new to my channel, please hit the bell button so that you can get notifications for my upcoming videos. And thanks a lot for watching.